Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Matthew Dale. I'm here to help you play better, sound great, and understand more. And today we're going to be souping up my Strandberg by installing a Tremol-No unit. Now, I was first turned on to the Tremol-No units by the, of course, amazing guitar player Guthrie Govan, and I've always been curious to try one out, and I think it would pair with the Strandberg really well. First thing I'm going to do to install this, I'm actually going to flip the guitar over, and I'm just going to mark the location of where my springs are connecting onto the claw. So I'm just going to take some blue painter's tape, and I'm just going to mark that on the front here. I'm just going to mark right where these are, and I'm going to just get this down and remove some of the excess here. This doesn't have to look pretty. I just sort of went around with my fingernail and broke the tape around here. It's just to mark where the springs are meeting the claw plate. That's all I'm doing here. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to turn this back over, and we're just going to ease the tension on the strings, slack these guys up, and I'm just using the Strandberg multi-tool here to make this a little bit faster. You could also probably use the metal hex key that comes with the guitar, but that's away somewhere, so I'm not going to use it. Okay, those are pretty loose. Let's flip this back over and take the claws off, or take the springs off, I should say. Also not a bad idea to do this like during a string change or whatever, but I put these strings on not too long, so I'm actually going to just leave these on, just making sure that there's enough threads on all of these tuners where I can not worry about one of my tuners falling off. Also, I do like that the logo is etched down there. That's kind of nice. This is the tremolo arm assembly. We have the knife edges on the post. There's actually I believe there's two different spots in here that this can rest on the post down here. I'm also going to try not to rotate these as much as I can because that would affect my action, and I don't want to do that. But I was always kind of curious. It looks like, yeah, there's two spots where the pivot point can rest there or there, and that might affect the feel of the arm as it goes back and forth. There's not a whole lot of information on the website or in the manual about that, so I was really kind of curious to take this apart and really kind of take a look at it. So while that is drying before I give it a second wipe, let's take a look at the Tremol-No unit itself. So we have an upgraded claw. It's thicker, a little bit more premium feeling, I guess. You have a screw to put your ground wire on rather than soldering on. And then you also have set screws for the claw adjustment screws, the wood screws that go in the body of the guitar. That's kind of nice. And then over on this side, this is the clamp type. So if I kind of bring this up to the camera a little more, this is going to clamp down on the tremolo block where one of these screws, or one of the springs, I should say, would be going. So you can't do this setup with a 5-spring setup like I have in my DGT. This has to be 4 or less. You can adjust and tighten this clamp down so it seats right on the tremolo block, and then it's got these 2 screws to allow this to go back and forth for using your tremolo unit. And then this attachment here is what they call the deep C. I don't know why it's called the deep C, but basically what it does is if, let's say, right here, your guitar is in its neutral position floating, and if you lock this down, you can bring this deep C up and lock it in place, and then when you loosen these 2 main screws up, what you have is basically a dive-only whammy bar sort of setup. So if you are going into like drop D, this won't affect it, and you can still do dive-only, and then go back to standard tuning and you know, loosen this up and put it out of the way, and then you have your full float again. So there's a lot of flexibility here. All right, so the guitar is flipped back over. I'm going to take these claw screws out. 2 claw screws out, and now I'm going to nip the ground wire, And here is the very boring, very standard tremolo claw plate thing. We'll get rid of this and put in the Tremol-No. Now this should be just about the right location with where my markings are on my tape. And as per the directions that come with the Tremol-No, now I'm going to actually tighten up the set screws that lock this down just until they bite. You don't over tighten these. So that would be locking it down. And then we're just going to back off about a half a turn so that there is a little bit of play. And that way, what you do is, as you get this set with how straight it is, you want to make sure it's as straight as possible so that when this operates, it's not binding. When you get that set up by feel, then you'll lock the claws down. I just stripped some back on the ground wire, and I'm just going to wrap it around this screw to get this loop created. So I've made a loop in my ground wire. I'm going to put that on the threads of this set screw, and we will tighten it down. All right, so it's on there, it's attached. If I feel like it's going anywhere, I will either A, take it off, strip back some more of this wire so that I can kind of twist it around on itself and make a loop that way, or I'll just get the solder out and solder it to it. But for right now, let's go with that. So now I'm taking the tape off. I don't need that anymore. Of course, painter's tape, so it doesn't leave any residue, which is good. And now we're just going to reassemble and put the guitar back to where it was. Okay, I've got two in. I'm going to flip it around and make sure everything is seated where it needs to be before I tune things back up and before I get that third one on there. Make sure that this is seated on those posts. I'm also just going to use the bar a little bit just to make sure it's riding where it should be. And I think it is, so I'm actually going to tighten some of these back up so they counteract the springs. And then I'll put spring number 3 back in. Pro tip, whenever you're getting one of these floating tremolos in tune and counterbalancing the string tension with the spring tension in the back, if I'm tuning up like to my E, I'm actually going to go a little bit sharp. Because as I tighten everything else down, it's going to pull this bridge back and loosen the strings so then I can get into that point of equilibrium a little bit faster. Okay, so now it's mostly back in tune. I'm just going to pop the arm back in and work this down and make sure that this still feels the way that I know it to feel. Now, I'm also just eyeballing how this is resting, and I think maybe I can just loosen the claws up just a little bit. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. I might do a little bit more adjustment after I get everything on. But now that this is back in place, we're going to slip on the aforementioned deep C all the way up. And then the Tremol-No unit proper. And now I've pre-adjusted this where this should lay right down, and it does. So now that that is in, let me tighten this down. I can tighten this down on the clamp, work the tremolo back and forth, and see how things are feeling. I'm also taking a look at how flat the Tremol-No unit is here with, say, the springs or anything else. There's spacers that can go underneath this if you need to lift this up. I think I can go down flat on this, and we'll see kind of how it feels. And again, these are things you really don't want to over tighten. I think that's going to be about it. Just want this snug to kind of hug the tremolo block. So now, as you can see, as I go up, that will move. As I go down, that will move as well. And per the packaging, you should not feel the tremolo at all when you are using it. So that's why you want to adjust the claw screw so you have this parallel motion happening. So now what I'm going to do is, and I'll probably do this off camera, but I'm going to install the tremolo arm all the way in. There it is locked, and then one rotation out. All the way in, I'm going to work the tremolo, and I'm going to see how it feels and if I need to adjust things a little bit. So I feel it in a way that I am aware that it is there, but I don't know if that means that I need to go. I don't know which way it means I should go. So I'm just going to eyeball to see kind of what it looks like. I'm taking a guess here, but maybe I can move this one in just slightly. And we'll see what that feels like. No, I definitely feel that binding more. So I think I have it where I'm happy. Now I'm going to lock down these set screws. I really don't feel any sort of tension on the Tremol-No when I do that, or any sort of like gripping. It seems like it's pretty well balanced. So not too bad. Really kind of an easy thing to install. I am going to get it back in perfect pitch, play around with it a little bit, and let you know what I think. Okay, so after I got everything installed, I went back and I sat down with my guitar and a screwdriver, and I just wanted to fine-tune that exact position of the claw screw to really make this feel like the Tremol-No is not there, and I really don't notice it at this point. The Tremol-No unit itself still operates just as smooth as it did before. I just have the added benefit of locking it down. Now, if there is something that I notice, I probably notice a little bit of acoustic extra resonance from the unit maybe shaking around a little bit while it's not tightened down. Other than that, though, it's pretty invisible. And of course, that doesn't come out when you're playing through an amplified system. Everything is still really nice and smooth for those slight warbles. Let's hit it with some lead now. Now I've got the Tremol-No locked down, so it really won't do anything. And now let's hear some pedal steel stuff. Of course, another huge benefit for the Strandberg is locking the Tremol-No down for string changes. So because you string the strings in here and then lock them down up here, it's a lot easier to lock this unit down, take all the strings off, do whatever sort of cleaning up you want to do, and then put a fresh batch on, clip them off, lock them down, and then tighten them up to tuning, stretch them out a little bit, and then undo your Tremol-No locking system, and then you are good to go to play the way you play. Overall, I am pretty happy with the way the Tremol-No works on my Strandberg Fusion. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment space below. Until next time, my name is Matthew Dale. I'm here to help you play better, sound great, and understand more, and I'll see you in the next video.